The first time I came in, they brought me in to interview the game, and I remember they sat me down and I was playing the original VS of the game, which was like a long time ago already.
Lead systems designer and associate producer Seth Shane.
And they just put the controller in my hand, and I was playing it on the PS3. And first time I stuck my sword into a guy's throat and saw the facial animation of his eyes open and his tongue like vibrating in his mouth, and I could see his teeth and his expression on his face that like I've never gutted a person before, but I imagine it would look a lot like that. And I just like remember like turning over my shoulder and looking at like Harvey and Raph, who were just like, "What do you think?" And I was like, yeah, I'll work on this.
I knew Harvey and Monty and Ricardo were working on a thing. They wouldn't talk about it. And so one day they NDA'd me and had me come in and play.
Designer Steve Powers.
And I was just getting off on the setting. And then there came a moment where I was going to assassinate the Lord Regent. And I got up high, and my experience was, I'm up high, AIs can't reach me, I'm golden, I'll just sit up here and pick them off. And so I was kind of acting a little cocky, and the guards saw me, and one of them pulled a pistol and said, "Clear the line," and the other guards got out of the way, and he took a shot at me and knocked me off that balcony, and I was stunned. I was like, oh my God. And then I was among them, and I started running, and I just ran blindly as fast as I could, leapt off a wall, and fell into a moat. And I was like, this is like a movie. I'm living out a movie. And I was so excited, and when I got finished, I looked around, and they were all like, oh, this is broke, and that's broke, and this didn't work, and rah, rah, rah. And they start conferring on everything that went wrong, and I was like, dudes, this is gold.
Welcome to the first Dishonored podcast. An ambitious stealth action game, Dishonored is the work of Arkane Studios, a team led by immersive FPS veterans Harvey Smith and Raphael Colantonio.
While Dishonored tells the story of a supernatural assassin on a mission of revenge, the team is quick to point out that it's also a game of deep systems and simulation, making the stories that players have yet to create just as exciting.
You know, you play a supernatural assassin in a steampunk city, and you're very much a supernatural assassin. You have powers related to stealth and killing. Possession, teleportation, and then you have abilities like sliding or climbing,
Co-creative director Harvey Smith.
And the other point about the game that's interesting is sort of a play your own way thing that's always part of our games. There are multiple ways to take out any target, including non-lethal ones. There are multiple paths through the mission space, and those things are very important to us. That's the key to making the game feel like when you play Dishonored, you feel like a badass, but you also feel like you found your own path. You make your own little stories up as you go because you play around in the space and you feel like you've explored it and done something creative.
Any game that has a lot of systems and is resolved by simulation is automatically inviting for players to find their own way to play and just like have fun and throw an object and see how NPCs react and find their own strategies. And
Co-creative director Raphael Colantonio.
And so that's in that way, that's why for us, the word sandbox has a meaning, because it's really what it is. It's like, hey, I'm just going to try things and see how much the game simulates things.
What makes this, for me, when I'm playing it, is I feel powerful, but not invulnerable. And I get to choose what's going to happen to the people around me, to everybody. And those two things together, because the I feel powerful is part of that I get to choose. Like, I'll decide if you live or die. I'll decide if this faction or that faction endures. But also, the fact that when I use my powers and when I do the things that I've invested in, the world reacts. Characters are like, holy shit, did you see that? It makes me feel like a badass. But I'm not such a badass that there's no danger. So I can be a badass, but stay frosty, because the world will kill you in a heartbeat.
In truth, the missions are in a linear sequence, right? So we handcraft every mission around what's going on there, what the target is, who the target is, what location in the city it is. We've laid the whole city out on a big map. It's all contiguous, so we know like where across the river this place is or that place. But it's not an open world game. It's a series of missions.
Lead technical designer Ricardo Bear.
It's easy to see how the misconception can be made, because if I just drop you inside of like our streets level, it does kind of feel like an open world game, but there's definitely boundaries, and eventually you'd realize, oh wait, this is actually a level, but it's more like a spoke where I can like load into lots of different little sub-levels that are connected to it, and the level itself is like a streets with alleys and lots of interconnections, and I can climb over the roofs and almost all the places in the map. What I think is one of the coolest scenes in the game, it's like a scene where these guys are meeting and one guy wants to poison the other guy. So the setup is very scripted, right, when you arrive on the scene. But then we turn the player loose, and what can happen afterward can be the result of like all the different powers. Like, well, what if the player possessed one of the guys in the middle of the poisoning scene? Well, what if instead of letting them even reach the table where the one guy's going to poison the other one, the player put a bunch of mines on the floor? So there are dozens of outcomes to this one scene, and it's so cool to watch it happen.
In Dishonored, the systemic interaction isn't limited to the population. It also extends to the world around you. Lead programmer Stephen Hurd.
The player is not only super agile, but we have a system we call mantling, which is the ability to climb up on things. And Dishonored doesn't use any markup at all for any of that. It's all systemic. So you want to climb up on something, as long as you can like reasonably climb up on it, you will climb up on it. And there's no markup. There's none of this. I can climb up on this box because it's been marked up, but this other box that they forgot to mark up, I can't climb up on that. We don't have any of that. It's completely systemic. So that's why this bug that someone found where they threw a pot, froze time, and now this pot is in the air. They walked up to it and it's like, well, there's something there that you can climb on. So it let them climb up on it. And as soon as they got up on top of it and their feet touched it, the bend time works such that when you interact with something, you pull it out of bend time as long as you're in contact with it. So they climbed up on it, that woke it up, and then it fell. But there was this brief moment where you could climb up onto a pot in frozen time, and like you could get up on it and jump or blink really quickly, and use that to cover a little bit of vertical distance. That's a good example of how just our systems interact in really crazy ways.
One of the things that happened was I think a level designer put a bottle up on a wall in exactly the right spot, and I kind of only noticed it as I climbed up onto the wall, and it knocked it down into the street. And I was going to go rooftops and avoid the guards, but one of the guards heard the bottle, and they came over to investigate, and I withdrew into this, like, whatever that little declivity or space or alley in front of a brownstone is. There's one of those, and I withdrew into that, and the guards came, closer and closer to try to sort of search the area. What was that? I don't know. Keep your eyes peeled, that kind of thing. And I didn't intend for some of this to happen, but it just led to a big chain of events, like where I withdrew into that, climbed over a railing to go on the side of the building, and was standing on a ledge, leaning around the corner looking. And the guards went pretty deep into the little shadow alley, but then as they turned around and gave up and started to leave, I got cocky and climbed back over the rail and tried to choke out the last one in the line. But the other guy saw me or heard me or something, and it ended up in this giant fight where I was trapped in this little dark alley with these guys, and I ended up having to set them on fire, and it was just but I realized 10 minutes later, because I knocked over a bottle, I had this whole little mini story about falling in this spot and then hiding, and these guys coming to see me, and it was just an interaction of systems, a hand-placed bottle, and me doing my own thing, and which powers I had chosen. And it's starting to feel like that, where you play through and you have your own little mini narrative.
Our thanks to the crew at Arkane for talking with us. We'll be back with more Dishonored podcasts in the coming weeks. Thanks for listening.